Welcome to California in Focus. I'm Eliana Kernodle. A variety of factors have contributed to devastating wildfires in Southern California. Joining me with more on this story is the Center Square's California reporter, Kenneth Schrupp. Kenneth, what is the current state of these fires and what natural factors contributed to these conditions?
Hey, Eliana. The fires, or the largest ones, are almost entirely uncontained. The Palisades and Eaton fires are each over 10,000 acres. The Palisades fires are nearly 20,000 acres as of a few minutes ago, both at 0% containment. We have two smaller fires a little bit north of the city that are 10 and 40% contained, respectively. And all of this has really come from a perfect confluence of extreme dryness after 2 years of record rain that created a lot of tinder and overgrowth that have now completely dried out. That was combined with hurricane-strength winds coming in from the desert. That is dry, hot air coming in and allowing any spark to become a major conflagration.
What assistance is Los Angeles getting to fight these fires?
Well, as many people know, Los Angeles and California step up and provide a lot of mutual aid whenever there are fires across the country. Now we're finally calling in those favors. Neighboring states, especially Arizona, Oregon, have sent in their state and even local firefighters and resources. We finally do have federal assets moving in now that the Biden administration has declared this a national disaster. However, one of the issues that we had was that the winds were so rough that we weren't able to deploy the air assets that we typically use to suppress any of these fires. Those include helicopters and airplanes that can fill up and drop entire tankers worth of retardant or water on a fire in a matter of seconds. Now that we have the air assets back online, the wind is dying down, it does seem like we can stop the advance of the fire, but until now, it's just been rolling essentially unstopped. We didn't have water pressure in the Palisades to continue fighting the fire. Unclear what the situation on the ground is in the east side of the city where the Eaton fire is, but firefighters are seeming like they're getting the situation under control.
There are some policies that are facing a lot of criticism for impacting the responses to these fires. What are they?
Well, number one was we did have a slight budget cut for the LA Fire Department this year under Mayor Karen Bass. We did cut the fire budget by about $17.5 million, I believe. We also, though, have not really conducted enough brush clearance. It does take several years on average to get permitting and approval to do controlled burns. The issue in California is we have a terrain called chaparral. This is just scrub land, low brush, low density scrub land that is really supposed to burn every few years. So in the absence of any forest management, if you adopt a policy of complete fire suppression, you have all these brambles, brush, dead trees that build up and become tinder for a fire. So if we're not doing prescribed burns, there was a California legislator who famously said, well, if you don't carry it out, you're going to have to burn it out. And we're neither doing mechanical thinning, which is removal of combustible material, or prescribed burns, which has meant that there's just complete fuel buildup. The city, apparently, I haven't confirmed this, may have stopped its hydrant testing due to some of the budget cuts. Making matters worse, we have had mass theft of hydrants for scrap metal value in the last year. We covered that hundreds of fire hydrants have been stolen, which, of course, is going to impact fire responses.
And what has President-elect Trump claimed about the fires?
Well, President-elect Trump has consistently pointed to California's water policy and California's forest management policy as the driver of the fires that we have here. Trump went ahead and has blamed Newsom for the policies that are fueling these fires. He said that Newsom has decided to limit the amount of water that we store and keep to protect a small fish called smelt. He's also talked about the need to conduct forest clearance, which we don't do. The U.S. Forest Service estimates that we have about 15 million acres of at-risk forest and land in California. The U.S. Forest Service also estimates it costs about $1,000 an acre to do brush treatment of some kind, whether that's physical clearance or burning. So we're looking at a cost of $15 billion to eliminate all risk at once if we chose to do that. So deciding to spend money on a lot of other programs that are supposed to be for environmental reasons without really dealing with the biggest environmental challenge facing the state has many concerned about the allocation of resources in the state.
And while we're still in the midst of these terrible fires, even when firefighters get them under control, it won't be the end of the story. And we already know some of what may face homeowners in the aftermath. Can you get into that?
The state insurance market is completely been ruined by ongoing state policies. In California, the state regulator must approve any rate increases for insurance and also requires that insurance hikes be justified by historic values and historic numbers. And that doesn't really put into account current factors and potential higher values and risks. So the rate increases have been much lower than the increase in claims, which has led a lot of insurers such as State Farm to not even stop accepting new policies, but just say, we're not covering your house anymore. You need to go get insurance from someone else. And they're just leaving the state. As a result, people have been pushed onto the state insurer of last resort called the FAIR plan. But there are a few issues with the FAIR plan. First, it only covers $3 million of property for protection. If you're living in somewhere like the Palisades, you might be seeing a median home price of $4.6 million. Your house is not really going to be totally protected. But that's just the material coverage. Let's just imagine that you do have a house where your value is fully covered by FAIR. Okay, well, FAIR only has $2.5 billion in reinsurance, which covers the payouts for its losses, and $200 million in cash. This fire is projected to cost tens of billions, if not over $100 billion. And the FAIR plan's $2.7 billion is not going to cut it. So where is all that extra money going to come from? There are two options. State regulators who have not been approving enough rate hikes and under whom FAIR is not allowed to pass on the cost of reinsurance to customers, so can't buy enough reinsurance. It would if it could. The state regulators would have to approve an assessment onto all of the FAIR plan customers to cover the payouts from this. So you could see payouts taking a long time as assessments of maybe tens of thousands of dollars, or at least thousands of dollars, could be coming to every FAIR customer. This is a big problem because FAIR has gone from covering $50 billion of property in 2018 to $458 billion now. They just cover an extremely large amount of property without having enough money on hand. The other option is to get a bailout from the state. But the Legislative Analyst's Office just came out with a new report before the governor's new budget proposal saying that the state doesn't have any room for new financial commitments, which means that a bailout would have to come from Republican Congress. Given Governor Newsom's plans to file lawsuits to maintain the state's sanctuary state and even environmental policies, it's unclear if Republicans are going to give him the money to bail out the state for its failed environmental policies without making concessions on the immigration and environmental standards that Republicans have had issues with.
Well, Kenneth, thank you for your insights on this story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.